Hey, good morning, fans of Survivor Super Fun Time Show. This is Kevin from the Survivor Super Fun Time Show. And today, this is early Saturday morning. I have a banana. I've got my coffee here. And I decided, why not use this time to make a Survivor video for the upcoming Final Five of Survivor 45. This past episode, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happened. Did not go Austin's way. Did not go his way at all. And he kind of got backstabbed by his number one boo, D. And D has firmly taken the reins of the game of Survivor 45, which I think has been predictable to some degree as a fan watching. You've seen it go along. It was very clear Ariba was going to win, kind of like in 44 when Atika was definitely going to win. The question was really, was it going to be Carolyn, was it going to be Carson, or Jam Jam? And it looked like going into the finals, it may be Carson, but obviously that didn't work out, which makes going into the final five of 44 all the more interesting because the story editing has been really wild. And I'm not sure where it's going because there was a good bit of time during the merge where Emily from the Lulu tribe appeared to be the one who is probably going to win the game. At least get to the finals for sure. And obviously that didn't happen. She got voted out 2 votes ago. However, now that we get to the very end, I'm not really sure exactly how it's shaping up. I mean, we go into the final five, we have 3 Reba left. Drew was just blindsided, and he was a prime target, I think, to win the game potentially. And if he does get to the finals, he could have had a really good performance where he talked their faces off and said, I'm the one who deserved to win the game because I was the brain. I ran things. I was the fishback and the JT to Austin's just JT. But he's gone. So now we're down to D, Julie, Austin, Katurah, and Jake. And right now, surface level, probability of winning the game of like who can get there and actually make a claim that will win it. I think it goes in this order. Number 5, Katurah. I think game-wise, Katurah has basically nothing to really rest on other than say she's been fighting from the bottom. But that's the same story as Jake. However, she's probably had a few more inroads. But from an editing standpoint, actually, you know what? We'll get to the editing later. Number 4, Jake. Jake has less right now as well. He's basically on the same level as Katurah. But he does have a hidden immunity idol that he found, the one that Julie played, that was Austin's. So he has one more vote to make that count. And he's definitely going to use it. I just don't know in what way yet. Hopefully he does it in a big way that will idle out one of the top threats that we'll discuss in a second. 3, I think, is Austin. Now, Austin's actually been my favorite the whole season. Preseason, you pick somebody that you just identify with, and I picked Austin. And he's been top tier the whole season. I think he's been a great spot. However, the last 2 votes, he's been knocked out of it. He's just not, he doesn't have the juice right now. If he goes up into a finals against like Julie and D and he tries to explain his game, he's going to need to be really convincing in order to win. He's going to need to try to say that he's responsible for at least the first 3 quarters of the game along with Drew, while D and Julie definitely are going to try to take the back half of the game. So it's going to be really dependent on Austin being able to make that pitch, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to. I love Austin, but it doesn't seem like one of his traits is being a killer. And I think you would need to be a stone cold killer in that conversation. So right now it's not looking good. But even though he was on the outside of the last 2 votes, it looks like he's got a really good strong chance of winning both of the next immunities because all the immunity threats are gone. And I think he probably would be really good at making fire. So I would probably pencil him into the final 3 at this point. But if he does get there, he needs something to talk about. And I think he needs to do something in the next 2 votes, which would be voting out one or both of the next 2 people, which is Julie, I think is the second best odds to win the game. She's a mama. A lot of people have already talked about how big a threat she was for that. They tried to vote her out almost unanimously because of that reason. I mean, there was a long period of time where I didn't get it. Like, I think Julie is very viable to be a winner in this game. I didn't think the castaways would have seen that, but apparently it was very obvious to them very quickly. Maybe this is just them using editing to justify why Julie doesn't make it to the finals and she gets voted out at 4 or 5. Maybe that's the case. But she has been in the majority of the Reba. She's made like one stupid mistake from what I remember, which was giving Austin the idol in the beginning of the game. However, that was pretty calculated too. She didn't want to make an enemy of Austin and Drew right away. So she kind of defied D and gave it to Austin. So Austin had an idol the rest of the time. Since then, though, I mean, she's kind of made up for it. I mean, Julie was given an idol by Austin, and then she essentially backstabbed him and kept it. Apparently, there was a moment at the water well where Drew and Austin talked about the idol that Julie had possession of and talked about it as Austin's idol. And Julie very specifically said, "You mean my idol?" And it was at that point Austin and Drew knew that Julie wasn't giving it back. So yeah, she's definitely taken more control of the game as it's gone on, and that's why right now I think she deserves to be the second-ranked player to win the game. But of course, she pales in comparison to number one, which is D. Ever since the beginning of the game, I've had a pretty strong feeling that D would be an endgame player. She takes it very seriously. She's willing to cut some throats in order to win the game. And in the past, like 5 or 6 votes, it does seem like whatever D wants ultimately is kind of what happens. And whether that's like splitting hairs or it's like little disagreements within the Reba 4, if D wants it, it has gone down. So you can't really question that. And D's stone cold because 2 votes ago, the reason why Julie was saved is because Austin wouldn't blindside one of his 2 tightest allies in D about the Julie vote. And D, of course, turned around right away and told Julie, which it's unfortunate because it now, like, the internet is crazy. The internet's like, Austin's such a simp, he's such a simp, he simps over D. No, that's just the game, dude. The game's about relationships, and people are trying to get on them for trying to maintain a relationship. It's knowing when to cut them. Was cutting D in that moment a good move for him? Probably not. It has not worked out for him, to be clear, and has very much worked out for D. D has cut it at the right time, turned on Austin, and because Austin's such a nice guy, I think, it's probably not going to come around and really hit her that hard. I'm praying that's not the case because I'm sitting over here, I'm like, Austin, stand up and take some agency back from D. She just ripped it from you. But I don't see that happening, and right now D is the number 1 threat to win the game. It's quite fascinating sitting back and watching it, honestly. I think we're in for an interesting final 5. I don't know how the dynamics will break down because I would think the number 1 target is probably going to be Julie at 5. Maybe if Austin is upset enough, it could be D. Austin, you would think offhand, is like, yeah, he should be the number 1 target because he's on the outs. I don't think that's the case. I think D is going to try to reel him back in. I think he has nowhere to go, so he's going to go, okay. And I also think he's going to win immunity at 5. So I'm not terribly worried for Austin's safety as a fan trying to think of his perspective. Jake, I'm not terribly worried about because he's got an idol. Katurah, I'm not worried about because I think she goes at 4. There was a little bit of editing foreshadowing where she talks about fire, like sucking, or like it shouldn't be a thing or whatever. And that just told me pretty immediately, this woman, she's losing to fire at 4. Very similar to last season when there was a lot of foreshadowing and imagery with Carson and fire. That point, I was like, it feels obvious Carson's losing at fire. I've been pretty dead on with that. So, and then you end up with a final 3. Let's say Austin, for sure. I think Jake will make it, and Jake would be really fun to watch at a final tribal. Truthfully, he'd be really fun to watch. And then we'll say Julie, because I'm hoping they kind of smarten up and take D out at 5. I've noticed that, like, every season in the new era so far, 41 to 44, whoever I thought going into the final 5 was the clear number 1 threat to win the game did not win the game. In 41, Ricard. I thought Ricard was the guy. 42, Mike Turner, I thought was the guy. 43, Jesse, although Jesse and Carlo are pretty close. 44, Carson. I thought that was the case. Now, Jam Jam wasn't terribly far behind, admittedly, but I think if Carson goes to the finals, he beats Carolyn and Jam Jam. I think it's really interesting how that's shaken up, because right now the internet fandom is very convinced that D has this just wrapped up. But, I mean, based on editing prior, I thought that a few of those players were in much better shape to win the game, similar to D, than they actually were. I would love it if D won. D would play an incredible game, and a lot of people right now are already throwing out the narrative like, if D wins, she'll be the best winner in 10 seasons, definitely the new era. And I was like, okay, we gotta back it up. If Jesse had won, he would have been the best of the new time, but he didn't. If Rapster Nino had won Amazon, he would have been one of the best winners of all time. But, you got to finish the game. You got to stick the landing. And I'm not ready to crown anybody anything yet. However, gun to my head, gun to my head, I would have to say the winner of Survivor 45 is going to be, banana drum roll, Julie, the mom. I feel it in my bones. She's going to win this game now at this point. Dee, again, is the obvious pick, but I don't know. It just seems like it's going way too much her way in the edit, I think, as well. And I'm just going to have to assume that Julie ends up getting this wrapped up. I think they're going to respect the idol play. Austin's going to look like a dunce for giving her the idol in the first place, even though he was just being nice and trying to protect an ally. I think it's going to go against him. I don't think he's going to make his case particularly well, even though he very much could win the game by making a great case. I mean, I think Marianne in 42 wasn't going to win that game until Final Tribal hit. So I think Austin's not going to be able to make that case, sadly. And Jake, try as he may, maybe he idols out Dee at 5 and he has more to talk about, or Julie at 5 and he has more to talk about. But I just don't see it. Katurah, if she does make it, she can talk about her background, which is pretty big. Game-wise, there's just not a lot to discuss. I mean, she could talk about the Caleb vote, voting out Caleb, which was a great move. I mean, people were upset at her for not keeping Caleb in the game. Like, why would she risk herself at all for that guy? That guy should win the game 99 out of 100 times. The fact that they got him out early is impressive on the Castaways' part. But overall, I think Julie is probably going to be your winner, but it's very interchangeable with Dee. Or if Austin shows me some kind of animal I'm not expecting, he could win the game, but he's definitely ranked 3rd. So these are kind of my loose, free-flowing thoughts on a Saturday morning with my iced coffee and my banana as I think about the game moving forward. Because it's really interesting. We got a lot to look forward to in the game. I'm very excited to see this. A preview for 46 will be coming up, which is wonderful. Can't wait for that. And hopefully it'll be pretty fun. And remember, if you want to see more videos of me in the future talking about Survivor and talking with Castaways, which is really fun, remember to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of those videos in the future. And of course, let me know if there's any videos you want me to do about Survivor as we are now, because it will be fun to talk about. But that's going to do it. I hope you have an amazing day, everyone. And take care. All right. Goodbye.